What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to talk to you about some leveling tips and tricks while actually going through the leveling process. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and I'm going to select my loot filter. This is my rogue loot filter. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then I'm going to prove that we don't have any gold or anything like that. There's no shards or anything. So this is a fresh character doing solo character found. And I'm going to go ahead and hit start as soon as we're ready to move. Now I do play on controller, so you'll see me occasionally switch to mouse and key. That's just making the game a little bit faster and smoother when it comes to doing some of these things. So for example, ready to start here, I'm going to click over here with the mouse and key. And that allows me to change the skill while still moving. And now we're back to controller. So some leveling tips and tricks, in doing this is to just run through these first sets of guys. They're going to follow you. They're not that hard to destroy or anything like that. So we can just go through. Notice how I didn't talk to that guy. That's because a lot of the quests items in Last Epoch, or the quest givers, don't actually need to be talked to. So we're going to ignore them. And we're almost going to die here, keeping an eye on my health. And I'm just going to pop the potion button when I get a little low. And get this guy down. I'm going to grab everything that he's got, especially that blue item, because it's probably really useful and helpful for us. We already made a mistake in not starting our timer. So we're going to go ahead and add a, probably 15-second penalty, 20-second penalty. We'll keep it fair and we'll even add a minute. Why not? Okay, so we're just making our way through here, and we are killing these extra guys because we want to try and get to level 4. Now, the reason we want to get to level 4 is because at level 4, we unlock a skill specialization, and we can put one of our skills in there to make us do more damage. So we're just going to run through all of these guys. And according to Rax, a streamer that I follow, as well as a couple other people as well, killing those monster guys will, those plant guys, will let the other guys follow you, and you just drag them over to this fight here. And this guy is a huge help in killing all of these guys. Now you want to be careful here because these guys can and will kill you. In fact, my first death in the season was over here. Not necessarily to those guys, but the guys right around the corner. Because I wasn't paying attention, and I had done this so many times that I wasn't really worried about it when I probably should have been. All right, there's shift. That's our teleportability. Now, these plant monsters and the fire monsters actually fight each other. So you can use that to your advantage and get a little bit of help from some of these guys. Up around the corner here, we could see some of this happening in action. See those plant monsters and the ones down there? They're going to fight each other. So we're just going to come in and reap the rewards. And have this guy help us do the majority of our damage. Okay. Now I tend to go up this right path just because there is sometimes a shrine near here. And if we do get the shrine, then yay. If we don't, then oh well. And I just find the monsters a little bit more, I don't know, not quite easy, but in a better path, I guess we'll call it. Okay, so this is where we see if we've killed enough to make it up a level. And come on, bird. There we go. There's the level we need. Now over here, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to mouse and key because doing that is just a little bit faster for putting these things in. And this guy I'm not too concerned about. There shouldn't be a chance of him killing me. Now I'm going to throw this acid flask down because it's going to do the most damage in the shortest amount of time. And that helped save us a little bit of time there. Now, previously I did a 2-hour run, or just under 2 hours in hardcore. This time we're playing softcore, just because I don't want to die over and over again during a video run. don't need to talk to that guy. And then we're going to come over here and see what this guy has. Again, I'm switching over to mouse and key just because it's a little bit easier. Cold damage is great. Anything that helps me over here is awesome. We get a little bit more armor if we buy this, and it's only 4, so why not do it? Plus, we can craft on it. We have a bow already and a decent quiver, so we're just going to check this out and see if it's a little bit better. They're about the same, so we don't really care about it. And then there's nothing else here that we really want, and we're looking for a silver ring because it's got inherent movement speed on it, and movement speed is very valuable to rogues especially. Now you'd think you'd have to talk to this person, but we don't. We can just run right by them. All right, now here, especially since we still have our acid flask boosted in our skills, we're just going to throw these around and let acid flask do 90% of the work. Now, don't stick around. Let these monsters follow you and occasionally throw a little thing back at them. You can see that the acid flask just takes every single thing out here, or every little monster out. And we got a handy dandy little shrine here. Shrines in Last Epoch are very advantageous. In fact, there's 2 of them. This is almost where I wish I was in offline mode because I could carry these shrines through to the next zone. Now, I don't need to go down this way. The only reason I did that is because sometimes those shrines can give you shards and they're pretty valuable. So we should be going up here, dragging some of these monsters. Until we reach level 5. That's the goal for this area. Okay, we got a boost in experience. I believe that's what that one does. And there we go. Now we can just run through the rest of the zone. All right, now it's time to respec our skills. I'm going to go over here, switch to the mouse and key, put in puncture, the things that I need, make sure it's actually on our skill bar, and then I'm going to switch over to the bow and quiver and just drop stuff here because it's not needed and our loot filter even identifies it's not needed. Put in the best passives that I've got, and now I'm going to go ahead and see if I die to these people who kill me almost every single time. Very frustrating people here. So if you play a little cautious, this area isn't all that difficult. It's when you're trying to go as fast as you possibly can that these guys become insanely deadly. So I'm going to play just a little bit in between because dying at this point isn't too big of a deal. You can always start your running over again if you really want to. But if it's, season start, you want to just be a little bit cautious there. All right, we've got our guy here. Now at this point, our acid flask doesn't really do much. And we want to be a little cautious for those continuous firebolts because if he gets stunned, then he's going to hit you really hard. And then he's going to summon some Phoenix dudes that are going to show up here in a minute. There's that stun. Anytime I get stunned by this guy, I pop a potion a second or so later. I do not want to lose all my health to this guy. All right, now let's see if he drops anything good for us. And switching over to mouse and key again, because it's the only way I can manage my loot at the same time. That's way better as moving. Now there's a shrine there. We would love to get it, but because we're online, as soon as we go into this next zone, that shrine is not really going to do anything for us. Now it still could be a gold shrine, which is fairly useless in combat situations, or it could be a affix shrine, which is pretty useful, but the time it takes to go find it is just not necessary. Watch out for clumps of enemies like that. By the way, the new system they have here with the controller aiming is so handy and so nice to us. I have yet to find a single complaint on it. I've got to get a little bit more comfortable with it, but it's really helped turn a speed run that, would have taken 2 hours and 15 minutes into a 2 hour speed run simply because the targeting system is so much nicer. Oh, interesting. I rolled through there. So you see the shrine's doing 90% of our work, and we love that. And it's going to help us out with this boss here. So I'm just going to focus on these other enemies initially, since our shrine is doing most of that damage. Moving towards what I need to get. Looks like I got some gloves there, which is really useful. Switching back over to mouse and key, we're going to talk to this guy. And then we're going to put on these gloves and move in the direction that we want to go. Again, could do some of that stuff there, don't really want to. Now here I'm fighting on mouse and key, and it took me a while to learn how to do just basic movements and stuff for that specific area. Okay, and then we're putting in all of our passives. We got smoke bomb. We want to put it on our bar. So I'm just gonna continue fighting these guys. And then I'm going to quickly put smoke bomb on the bar, move this way, and back to controller. Now, you can do all of this stuff on controller and just take a second to stop. But if you want to go as fast as possible, learning how to switch between mouse and key, or even just learning mouse and key, is going to make it a lot easier because of the speed at which you can do things. Now, I still like and I'm used to playing controller in almost every game, so that's why I'm doing it this way. We only have to talk to this guy once, and then we can move on to the next zone. Now here I'm going to take some time to do my skills and move on to the next area. I think that was the right skill. I've got a lot of the rogue tree memorized, but sometimes I still find myself second guessing. And in my best run ever, I've actually made several mistakes by specializing in the wrong skill or putting a skill in earlier, forgetting to do the falcon. So I'm going to try my best not to make any of those mistakes this time. We're getting pretty lucky with their shrines. This one's given us a bit of a boost to our movement speed, so it doesn't really help us with damage, but hey, if we're focusing on running fast, that's what we want to do, right? We got another shrine. Got stunned for a second there. I'm going to see if the shrine... Yep, there we go. Shrine's doing all the work. Now here, since I know this is a really good damaging shrine, this is throwing out a rogue skill. If we had a specialization in this ability, it would be doing massive work, and I could potentially go in and do that, but it doesn't make sense to do it for just this one skill. At the bottom of the map there is a chest, and you can get some decent shards or even a possibility of a unique item popping out, although it's fairly rare. There's the venomous file that we need and a silver ring that's going to help us out a lot. So once I get through there, I'm going to go back over to mouse and key, and I'm going to pop that in because I know it's very valuable, and I see that the silver ring is already equipped. And I'm just double checking if there's anything else I need to do. And then I'm going to go over here, put in my point there, and continue onto this area. Now, something to keep in mind, you can pop down your portal early, and you can wait for this guy to talk about his little speech thing. And as soon as I see that thing coming in, I push through the portal, and it automatically does the rest. We don't have to sit there and wait for that dialogue. All right, back in town, we're going to go over to our vendor here and see if there's anything else that they have that we want. Helmet is always really useful in the beginning of the game. I recommend buying it. If there's anything here that's useful for the shards, I'll go ahead and take it. If not, go ahead and get rid of it. Increased physical damage is great in the early game, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. And we got physical resistance for everything else. We're good. So I mentioned getting one of these venomous file things. The reason that it's such a useful thing to have is because of its chance to spread poison, I believe. So let me double check that. Throwing damage, physical resistance, chance to poison on hit as an implicit. This is absolutely great because that's primarily what we're doing the entire time, especially as a when we get our Umbral Blade skill. I'm gonna go ahead and put in more of these skills. Make sure I'm not taking off my pants here. All right, and we got another one of those things. And I am on mouse and key here just for that few seconds. And then back to controller. All right, Gold Shrine, not the best thing, but I do like getting a little bit of gold in the early game because when we go to the Gambler, it will let us buy certain items that are higher leveled and we can find some use for them. So now many people take different routes through here. I'm just trying to keep an eye out for those rare monsters because they tend to give you a little bit more reward compared to these smaller guys in terms of XP. But I weave my way through the center here. And like these guys right here, those guys are going to give you a little bit more XP compared to everything else. So feel free to take those guys out. Now another danger point is right up here. There are a lot of monsters that can overwhelm you fairly quickly. And if we don't take out these archer guys and these flame guys, they'll just stack damage on you. So I recommend at least getting a couple hits on these guys when you're moving through the zone, firing back occasionally. And then make sure you've got an escape route planned if you ever run into a lot of monsters. So like right now, looking a little dangerous, I'm going to go ahead and create a bit of an escape route if I need it. And that Orion's Pike is the only important item that we want from here because it's going to help us out with our boss fight. Okay, we've unlocked our skill specialization, which is going to be useful for our shift ability. That guy is a rare monster, which means if I kill him, he will drop something. It also means that he's a little bit more dangerous to fight. So if you want an extra item and you've got the time, go ahead and kill him, see what he drops. Sometimes it's something good. I've occasionally had a shrine through there that's helped me kill him a little bit faster. So I've used that to my advantage. Also another danger point right here. These monsters will stack up and get a stun on you, and once you're stunned, then all of a sudden everything swarms you. Make sure you have at least one shift or dodge to use here, and just constantly deal damage. That's a good shard, so I'm going to go back for it. See right here, almost got overwhelmed. Still pretty dangerous. I'm going to pop a potion just in case. I want all of that XP. I'm going to continue moving towards the door until I feel I'm safe enough. Okay. Now we're going to make our way over here. This guy talks a little bit before starting his battle. So we're going to wait until we get into the zone before switching our item and putting our skill in. Let's see. I think it's here. Do we have any more passives? Yes, we do. And right when we're ready to fight. So this guy isn't all that difficult. You can take a couple of these hits as long as you got some good items on. I wouldn't stand around and, just wait for him to kill you. Whenever he does a big move like that, very dangerous, get out of the way. But as long as you have a couple potions in here, you should be fine just standing here and moving around in circles. He's going to push you a little bit there. I go ahead and let him because sometimes I can deal some damage and not have to worry about him fighting back when he pushes me halfway across the screen. So we're almost done here. Just in case, I'm going to pop one of those potions. And there it goes. We're going to get a portal out. We got to get a helmet. Back to town. Okay, a little bit unlucky with the portal spawning, and then we're going to go up here and talk to this guy and get into the next act. So I'm a little bit slower than my fastest time, and that could have just been due to, the portals and stuff that I got. I don't know why it gave me a double dialogue. So we get to talk to this person. See if there's anything else there. There's a silver ring. I'm going to grab that real quick. And one of the... Nah, I probably didn't need to grab that. Oh well. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and get my bow back on. Apparently that was a decent belt actually that I snagged there, so maybe I can break it down for an affix shard later. Okay, now most of the monsters here don't give you very much XP. I just try to kill at least a couple to get through. You can tell by looking at the bottom of your screen, by the way, what the bar is. You can see that even when I kill a huge chunk of them like that, you know, my bar is barely moving. Um, so I just do what I need to stay alive and then just move, move, move. That's another guy we don't have to talk to. So go ahead and ignore him and all of his worries. And essentially, you can just hold shift through here if you wanted to. It's not too much of an XP loss. Now, the rogue, in particular, getting pretty much actually any version of the rogue, has almost no resistances built in, which means that you actually need to find decent items to put those resistances on. And the health and way of protecting itself is also fairly low. So this means that it's likely to die on the rogue, which is why I'm showing it off here, because if you come in here as a sentinel, you can just stand around and take most of these monsters like they're nothing. But we don't get as fast of speed here, so if you want to do it quick, go ahead and try out the rogue. Now in a minute here, we should be unlocking decoy. Maybe we've already done it. I think it's level 10 that we unlock it. And that will give us some way of protecting ourselves, at least a little bit. It also allows us to group up some monsters. There's a little chest over here that sometimes drops some good things. In that case, I got an amulet, so love to see that. I go and get it almost every time. It saves you maybe 2-3 seconds not getting it, but that's probably not going to be a deal breaker in terms of the fastest times in this game. And it also gives you some bit of health or some way to recover. So a little dangerous here. These monsters can very easily kill me if I'm not paying attention or if a bridge doesn't activate in time. This is one of those guys that we do need to talk to, so we're going to spam our interact button. And eventually we should be finding a, trying to remember what they're called here. One of these nemesis encounters or nemesis fights. There, right there. So I do like, if they're on my way, to check them out, because I have gotten a Firestarter's torch in one of them before. And the Firestarter's torch was absolutely game changing for my builds and almost any build in the game. And it makes running alts a million times easier, especially if you can empower it and get something decent on there. So I'm going to go ahead and actually clear out some of these just to check what this is. Ideally, you would only want to check these if they're something that takes 2 seconds to do. That one was way longer because we had to kill all those monsters. So that was a little bit of a time waster. Okay, one slight annoyance there with the targeting system was that it wouldn't let me actually break through that box, but minor inconvenience. Switching over to mouse and key to try and spend some of these points in. Don't take off the ring. We don't want that. Let's see. And here. Okay, and then let's see. Don't have that unlocked yet. I think it's because I need to put a passive point in. So we're going to head over here and try and see if this shrine's actually any use to us. Okay, nothing. Unlucky. Okay. So I go ahead and drag these things into this fight because these monsters take forever to show up. That's one complaint I will have about Last Epoch. Not, the worst thing in the world, but when you have these little event things in the campaign that I have to do, don't make me stand around and wait for these monsters to show up. Just to throw a huge wave of them at me or throw a small boss early. I would rather just start fighting right away versus waiting here. So now we get to play our favorite game, which is stand away and let everybody else do the work. Now this guy does drop some items. Usually they're not very good, and it's better just to go through the next zone anyway. I am going to wait to put in passive because I know that this guy is going to give me a passive anyway. So might as well wait a second. And then here's where we get our idols for the first time. Okay, give me the idols. All right, only one of them seemed to be good. Pop that in. Just double checking what we got here in case there's anything that's a way better deal than what we have. I actually didn't need to talk to that guy, but we did so anyway. He just tells you to go in this room, which we're already going in, so. Okay, there's the decoy that we wanted. Put that there. And there. Now, I wish there was a faster and more efficient way to do those, and you can by stopping for a second, but it really just feels so much slower if you know how to do it, or if you've seen somebody do it on mouse and key. They're way better at moving and getting to where they need to be compared to me. Okay, that is a good item for us actually, and it'll help us keep alive. So I'm going to throw down a decoy here, and I'm going to throw down this smoke bomb to boost whatever damage that I can get here and make sure that these monsters don't target me. You see that decoy probably helped us stay alive there, and I'm trying to hit all of those with those things. I'm going to go ahead and challenge this guy right away. Now, they're a little tough in the beginning here, so I'm just going to make sure I've got my decoy ready to go if I need it, which I might not. Okay, I'm getting a little scary. Throw that decoy down. I'm going to throw down one of these smoke bombs. Make sure I'm ready for the potions. There we go. Okay. So the reason we wanted that, because I recognize this thing, is that chance to receive a glancing blow when hit, 3 health gained when you receive a glancing blow, 97 armor, increased bow damage, increased bow stun chance. That's pretty much going to be better than almost any quiver that we find in the game. Let's see what we got here. Some physical resistance, but we're in the void zone, so it makes sense to keep the void resistance that we have. This has got some better regeneration, but we're losing some of that movement speed, so I don't like that. Okay. We got okay, my mouse isn't working there. Shrine down here, so we're going to use that when we get the chance. I'm going to double check our things here. Now you can see how slow it is compared to doing it with mouse and key. Rip Blood, that's a great one. So now with that quiver, we should be a lot more tanky. We should get a glancing blow more often, and that should help heal us up. As well as that damage, it should be fairly good. So I'm going to be a little bit more confident going into these situations. Still shouldn't be cocky on the rogue though. In a single second, you can die. I like to attack that guy early because I need to go over here anyway, and it pulls him forward. So just a small little tip there. Okay. We're approaching a boss fight up here. And we wanted to get that final level there, so we got it. Make sure we're putting all of our skill points in here that we can. Make sure our passives are all put in. We've got our decoy ready. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw down that decoy right there and stand over here in the side and just try and target as many of these guys as I can in a line. So we see that we're hitting multiple angles on them. And occasionally I want to make sure that I'm trying to target the one that's got the most health on it. With our glancing blow, we can tank a couple of those hits there, which is nice. And they're all on a perfect line there. I'm going to go ahead and throw down a decoy, throw down my smoke bomb. And I want to make sure I'm turning my angle to hit multiple ones of these. Look, we're tanking this whole thing right here, which is great. And we've got the rest. All right, back to our town. We're going to talk over to this guy to get our special gloves. He'll let me. And then now that we've got that extra passive point, we're going to put in our skills. I can't tell you how many times I've done that where I've, put in a passive point and then only to collect one from a quest reward 2 seconds later and have to go in there and put in another one. So it helps to know which one of these guys actually gives you things. We got double shrines here, which is great. Let's see if they're useful. One of my favorite shrines in the game is this lightning shrine. And we double it up with our handy dandy little blade shuriken shrine. That's going to let us run through this area. I hope we get a loot lizard here. I tend to get one around here, but it's not guaranteed, especially with the changes that they've made to the loot lizards. I've also ran into a lot of champions right here, so I would love to have that happen when I've got one of these shrines actually helping me out. At the very least, this boss should be a piece of cake. All right. I think, yeah, I got some better boots. I'm going to put those on, put these gloves on that I got earlier. The reason we took time to do that was because that portal takes a little bit to show up. All right, movement shrines. Actually perfect here. The monsters in this zone are really easy and we're just running by them. So getting that little bit of a boost to getting through there is actually kind of nice. Okay, we're moving on. I don't like this thing because it's going to go away here in a second, which sucks. But the reason we're going back this way is to get an extra passive point, which is going to allow us to skip some things later on. We do have a shrine we could see on our mini map way down there. So we're going to actually try and kite most of these monsters in that direction and hope it's a shrine that does most of the work for us. My poison should do a lot of this damage, killing some of these monsters. And you can tell if they're dying by taking a peek at your health bar. I am going to go out of my way to get this shrine, by the way. Okay, we got our melee damage shrine, and let's take a look over here. Now, I'm not familiar with those boots, so I'm actually just going to go ahead and banish it and hope I get something better later on if I need it. The only reason we went there is because we had to go over there for the shrine anyway. Now our goal should be to drag the shrine into this boss fight here. So I'm actually going to rush ahead and hope I can use some of this damage that I'm dealing here for this boss that's going to show up. There he is. I'm going to throw down a preemptive decoy just to make sure that I've got a good chance of staying alive there. Okay, we've got a champion. Throw down your decoy and run past him. Champions don't really give us anything good, and it helps distract the other monsters, which lets us get through there a little easier. Sometimes you can get a shrine in here. If you do get a shrine, don't use it right away. These guys all die insanely easily. And when the boss monster comes up, you can click on the shrine to get a little bit of a boost. So Another little pro tip there. By the way, occasionally, if you need to check out a skill or some gear or anything like that, go ahead and throw down a decoy, and then you can go in here and mess around for a second. Don't do it too long, those monsters will rush you, but it's a little tip for if you're not very familiar with going through your skill items and stuff. All right, we should have the monster pop up here in a second, I think after this wave. Throwing down the decoy. I know he's going to spit fire at me again, so I'm just going to move closer to the exit. Hopefully this time around, he should be good to go. I'm going to throw another decoy just in case and go on to the next area. Now that is something we don't need to interact with, so we're going to ignore it. Now, I do think they need to tweak the controller settings just a little bit. Because there's occasionally times where it'll target the enemy in front of me and I have a group behind me, and I would much rather target the group behind me than the single enemy in front of me. So that's just something that they could work on in the future. I don't know how complicated that is. Maybe I'm asking for the impossible there, but if you agree, go ahead and type it up in the comments or message them on their Discord and let them know. There's a shrine over there. We're going to go to the next zone, so we can't actually go and get it. All right, and now we got another fight coming up, so I'm going to go in here and make sure all of my skills and points are put in that I can put in. I'm going to throw down one of those decoys right away, just in case he targets me in a way I don't like. And we're going to make sure we take all of our advantages that we possibly can to deal the most damage that we possibly can. Okay, should not have done that, but oh well. Made a little bit of a misstep here. You can just stand in one spot and move back and forth for that fireball. Maybe we'll see it this next time here. I do love Last Epoch's bosses because for the most part, it's about learning the mechanics and knowing how to dodge. It's not about stacking up as much damage as you possibly can. Even if the fight takes a while, you can sit here and learn the mechanics of the fight and make your life 1,000 times easier. All right, good fight. Now we get to, whoa, not sure what happened there. Now we get to do our mastery. So every single build has a ideal leveling guide towards it. If you don't want to spend time respecing your mastery because of the cost, then go ahead and choose a mastery that's useful towards you. But I do like the Falconer, and I tend to play the Falconer in the end game because 2 of the S rank builds this season are Falconer builds. This one will probably end up being a Heartseeker eventually, because I accidentally scrapped one of the main bow weapons for that and couldn't get it back. So I really want to have that happen. But on the other rogue that I have, he just so happened to have almost all of the things I needed for the Blade Dancer Falconer. So we ran with that. Okay. On to this act. Now, these monsters are incredibly deadly. If they slow you, it takes forever to get through this zone and is just overall annoying. So I don't bother with them. I'm just going to run through this entire area. And I'm going to use my decoy skill if I ever get concerned like I'm going to be slowed down or overwhelmed. I'm going to move down this way just because there is a shrine down here. It's going to be a little bit of a time loss. I'm going to throw that decoy to make up for it. In this case, I'm pretty sure that is an XP shrine, which sucks because we're not killing anything here. But if that was a lightning shrine, then we could at least get a little bit of XP back, or if it was some idols or affixes, you know, it would have really helped us out. So that's just the luck of the draw. Okay, on to another incredibly dangerous zone. Now, if you have a alt character that you're doing this on, and you've got a decent amount of leveling as well as a decent items to pass on to it, you can go up to that door on the left there and go through the Lightless Arbor dungeon so long as you have a key. Every single time I've done an alt character, I'm usually around this level, you know, 14, 15 when I go through here. And I'm not as familiar with the dungeon mechanic for the Lightless Arbor, and I don't have the right resistances. So I almost always die. Even with my Templar, or not, sorry, not Templar, my Sentinel, I've died going through that. So now if I had waited a couple more levels and came back, I probably would have been fine. But at that point, it's just better to play through the main part of the game. Once we get really fast at this, it's actually pretty efficient. And it's a little bit more fun than using some of those dungeon skips. There's another silver ring there. Now, I'm only going to shoot at the spiders primarily going through here, just because the spiders tend to die really easy, and all of the monsters here are scary. Now, this is the best place to get like a lightning shrine or a hammer throwing shrine, and it will carry you through the zone. I recommend just trying to hold forward as much as you possibly can. Throw down a decoy if you're ever almost overwhelmed or about to get overwhelmed. Like right here, I'm just going to preemptively throw down a decoy, shoot some of these monsters as I make my way through, because this is one of the longest zones in the game. And if you end up dying, you've got to rerun through this entire zone again. So you can see some of the area we've already kind of gone through. Dying right here would make us restart that whole process. So in particular, it's also a speedrunner's nightmare. Getting a little dangerous. Oop, almost died there. I'm going to throw down another decoy and say, hey, get away. And make my way towards the exit. So you can see why we don't bother killing most of these guys. It's just too dangerous. There's a shrine there. I'm going to go ahead and take it just in case. We can get a little bit more XP. So far, we haven't had any loot lizards this run, which would have helped us, because if we got a loot lizard, there's a chance of them dropping an implicit rune, which will give us some extra leveling items. Okay. I think we go back that way. And we still need to spend 1 point there. And we want to go over to our Blade Dancer and put a point there. Now, I usually go down here first instead of up because the top zone kills me so often. So that's the only reason why I'm going down, is just for the off chance that, you know, a loot lizard shows up, or there's a leveling, you know, item in here that's helpful. Maybe I get a void resistance thing in here. Whatever I can get from here that's going to help out my chances for the top area, the better. Now, despite saying that, I've also died here. So this is an incredibly dangerous area. I also don't like the fact that it fakes me out. I want to go right there so many times, but I end up not doing it. Make sure you're ready for a decoy here if you ever feel like you're getting overwhelmed. That is our new skill that we're going to be switching to. Don't switch to it right away because our other one has so many points put into it. And we also don't have a dagger yet to take full advantage of it. I'm going to throw down one of those decoys there. So that monster attacks there. And then I'm going to make sure I'm killing these additions. Staying back as far as I can. and finishing it off. Okay, something good got there. Okay. So I ended up not finding a single dagger during that run, which is tragic. I'm going to go ahead and put that on. Poison resistance is useful. We had a bow that was way better the whole time we could have used. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and do something that I think will help me out so much more and make my job way easier, which is gambling at the gambler here. So I go here and I'm going to sell some of the items that I don't really care for. Don't care, don't care, don't care. Now, some of these are actually useful items and they have some stuff on here that I do want. Like this plus to shift is really useful. It's just that I don't have any shards that can fully take advantage of it. So it's taking up a lot of space in my inventory and I would rather get rid of it at that point. I am going to save that because I need that poison resistance. I need that physical resistance no matter what. And that cooldown recovery speed. Now I'm going to go over here and get a couple daggers. The game will let me get a couple daggers, that is. All right. Loot filter, show me those items. And let's see, passives. I want to make sure that there's not a skill that I was missing. Can equip swords. Yeah, okay, that's correct. Okay, we've got that ready. We're ready to spec in our humble blades. We want to make sure we're changing it at the bottom there. Okay, we're ready to get back where we were at. Now, this is going to be very scary in the beginning. We don't need to talk to that guy down there. Probably the third area I've died the most, I would say, is right through here. So I play pretty cautiously here. And our Umble Blades aren't doing an incredible amount of damage as of right now. They're still doing great damage, but not to the point where they can be after just getting a few skill points in there. So we're going to be aware that we might not be doing as much damage as we would hope. We're going to throw down one of those decoys a little early there. Because if one of these guys stuns us and the other people are nearby, we're just gone. We get stuck in one of those, little area attack things, we're gone. So throw another one down, keep moving. Now, one time I thought I was safe over here, and this guy right there just tried to destroy me, which he's probably going to try and do again. So I threw down one of those decoys and saved my life. Okay. Surprisingly, also a pretty dangerous area. These monsters in here aren't too much of a threat, and they die. Oh, there's our loot goblin that we've been wanting. Aren't too much of a threat. But they are dangerous when combining them with the things that you have to destroy in here. So let's go up here and activate that. And I'm not going to guarantee that I won't die during this run. It is a little bit more difficult to play the game while describing the reasons you're playing and why and all of that juicy information. So okay, so our damage isn't where we would like to be. Ideally, if we're at this point, we could take this thing out in 3 hits, or maybe 4 hits at the most. We are heavily relying on decoy here. In fact, I'm actually going to take some time to clear out these monsters, just because I know that if I go to that other area without doing it, I'm going to for sure die. Okay. No skill points yet. Would really have loved that. So only recently have I discovered, I am not sure what that is, that I'm pushing the button a little too fast on these umbral blades. And if I just let them sit in the area for a second, they'll go through and deal all this damage. So that's what I'm currently trying to do, is make sure that I'm actually letting these umbral blades do the work that they're supposed to be doing. You can see right there, compared to the first ones, it was so much easier to just drop it, let it, fall behind me and kill all the enemies. So you guys go follow that, and I'm gonna go talk to this guy. Another boss fight coming up here. Now I want to try and stay back a little bit here and make sure that these umbral blades are actually kind of sticking where they're supposed to. And I think the targeting on this doesn't quite line up properly. So in this case, it's, probably going to be best just to spam it. But if it was working the way it's supposed to, these umbral blades would go right where the boss is by getting the right distance from them. But nothing we can really do about that. Those little additional monsters that he brings in, by the way, are a pain in the butt. Now, if I had one more skill point in the Umbral Blades thing right here, this fight would be over insanely quick. And I believe in my fastest run, I'd killed a little bit more monsters or gotten a little bit more lucky on the shrines, and it allowed me to run through this fight very fast. But now it's just very frustrating and annoying. And my targeting's a little off too. I'm not sure why it's trying to go to these random areas. So I might report that as a bug, because that just seems weird. It keeps trying to angle up. I don't know if you guys can see that on your screen there. In fact, I might switch over to mouse and key for the rest of this fight just to make it work a little bit better. Of course, that might make me die. There we go. Now the fight's working a little bit better. All right, you can die now. Okay, now if I can remember how this was going, I think it was this way. So our goal at this point is to clear out some of these little side quests that actually give us something, like the passives. Now, something to keep in mind is it's probably a little bit faster to go through this area later in the game, because at that point you've stacked up so much movement speed. The monsters here aren't a threat. You could stack down some cooldown recovery, which means you can teleport through these zones much faster. So it will save you a little bit of time in that sense. But if you just run through here and hold down shift every single time it's ready to go, it's not that much of a time difference. You're talking about saving maybe 15, 20 seconds. And that's only if you've got the cooldown recovery and the movement speed items on your gear. Plus, that means you have to go through the rest of the game with one less, passive or idle. And dying in some of these zones is more time consuming than the time you would save by not getting those things early. So this is an incredibly long zone, and I really wish like EHG would maybe even give us a guaranteed shrine in here that's like a movement speed shrine or something, just to make it a little bit nicer. Of course, we get a shrine, but it doesn't help us. This is one of those zones that I really don't want to run through again. So I'm just doing my best to make all the monsters stay away. Okay, we should be at the end here. Champion is definitely a no-go. We want to stay away from him at all costs. Plus, the items don't really help us anyway. If a champion has an item that maybe helps you, go ahead and try him out. But in my experience, 90% of the champions that I've fought so far have had items that aren't worthwhile at this point in the game. More than likely, EHG will hear the complaints or frustrations of players and say, yeah, you're right. Let's make a champion drop a guaranteed skill bonus on it. Then it'll be worthwhile. So actually, instead of targeting those lizards, I'm going to go ahead and target all these monsters since they were all in a line for me anyway. And I know the loot lizard isn't going to go away anytime soon. Now I can spend my time focusing on the lizard. Got something with leeching on it. I think it was an affix shard. Let's go ahead and put some points in there. It's important. I can replace our other knife. So in a moment here, I'm going to put that on. I'm not confident in using mouse and key with this many monsters around. I'm fairly confident that I will die. I'm going to throw down one of those decoys. Clear out this monster real quick so I can safely teleport. Hey, look at that. There's a shield over there. It is useful to sell those things, so I'm going to go ahead and pick it up real quick. And then we're going to teleport back. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And I think this hammer is actually something that I want in my offhand. So I'm going to do that. And let's just double check my skills here. Move on to the next area. Okay, before I go, I'm just going to double check. Is there a... Yes, there is. I'm going to add that just to get some extra shards. Now our gear is looking a little bit better. So really important, by the way, when you're looking up a build for the first time and you want to know what actually scales your build the most of the time they'll have it in the descriptions below. You can read some more information on it. So for example, I know that physical dagger, let's see here, what is it, shadow dagger penetration, I believe, I'd recognize it when I saw it, is something that's going to be the absolute best for this build. So knowing that, if I find an item on that, I'm going to craft it onto something decent right away. There's also implicits in this game, and implicits are items or stats that are built directly onto the item and cannot be changed, such as the affix shards can. So I know that finding those are more important than finding almost anything else in this game. So we're going to try and stand a good distance away so most of our attacks work against him. This is one of the easiest bosses in the game. He's honestly pretty difficult to die against. Okay, there was something red back there, which I'm genuinely surprised about. 90% of the time, he drops something that does not apply to me, so I didn't bother looking at it. Okay, which way do I go here? If only I can remember. I think it's up here and then down. Now, I have a one monitor setup. So for me, it's very difficult to figure out what I actually need for my build. I can put it up on a second screen and switch between it, but it's very difficult to do that and speed run the game at the same time. We got a Rune of Ascendance there, which is going to be huge. Now, if I'm not mistaken, for the Rogue, it's recommended that you use that on belts. So that's something else to keep in mind and look out for, is what to use those Rune of Ascendance on. So once I get a chance here, I'm going to put that on a belt and see if I get something good. Should be almost out of this zone here. This circle thing around me slows everybody down, by the way, in case you were wondering. Okay, do we have a belt? We do. Let's go to the forge and let's see what we get from this. Okay, we got a set one. Gives us 30% fire resistance, increased minion damage, intelligence, 3 potion slots. Not the best. I'm actually a little bit disappointed in that, but we take what we got. Last Epoch, like almost any RPG or ARPG, is going to have those runs where you just get all of the items you need and everything clicks right away, and you know things are going good. You're getting those shrines, and it makes you fall in love with the game, and you say like, you know, this is the best game ever. And then you're gonna get times where you're just getting gold shrines over and over and over again. You get champion monsters like this guy chasing you. You get their one critical hit strike on you that absolutely ruins a run, and then you get the worst items possible. So I will say that within all of those ARPGs, Diablo 4, PoE, PoE 2, and of course Last Epoch, that it seems to do the best in terms of minimizing the damage against you because of the crafting system. So we're going to find another boss here. And I'm going to go behind him, turn this way, throw down a decoy here, just because it tends to bug him out for a second. Nice try, Bozo. All right. Now let's go this way. I'm going to put in Smoke Bomb, which is the correct thing to put in. Should have gone down one there. Oh well. And I should probably put in that passive point, because once I get to 4 there, it's a major damage increase. So if I manage to level up one more time, my damage should go up tremendously. Okay, we got an extra shrine up here. That's nice. It's a gold shrine. That's not nice. That's actually very mean, game. Is this one going to be nice? There's another one down there we could go for, but a little bit of a time waster if we do. Now, if you remember me saying, like sometimes there's some generational, runs that you get in these zones. This is one of those things where I genuinely don't understand how I achieved this before. I'm approaching the time it took for me to finish this act here already. And right now I'm still quite a bit of ways. I'm still probably, another 5-10 minutes out or something like that from finishing it, which I did before. So I don't know how I did that in that time before, honestly. It really blows my mind. Maybe I accidentally clicked something a little too early. I could double check and see if that was the case by looking back at my other video. And if you are not aware, I did upload a hardcore run in under 2 hours, and we made a lot of mistakes in there, and I might have forgotten to push the button at the right time. So the run on the left or right side of the screen that it's currently comparing is that best run that I've had. Now notice how I'm not clearing out the room here and I'm just running forward. These monsters are pretty dangerous. They do give you fair amounts of leveling, but at this point I've already gotten the one skill level that I really need, and sitting here clearing out the whole room is not needed. So I'm just going to try and target a couple of these elites and move forward. Shrine over there, I'm going to go ahead and go for it just because. Okay, and then here we're going to do a little trick. Make sure we go through there. As soon as we've collected this shard, we're going to go back to this town over here to turn in some of these quest reward items. And that's because if we do that and then go back to that area, you can teleport anywhere. It's just that that's probably the best time to do it, to turn those things in. Will be put right in front of the gate here, and it will let us save so much time from walking back in that area. All right, don't let that monster kill me. And now I'm going to double check that I've put in that passive point that I need. We can go ahead and go through here again. I'm not 100% sure if I'm supposed to do this yet, but I'm going to go ahead and try it. And add that in and get our umbral assault. Okay. So again, this isn't too far out of the way. I'm just going to go ahead and check on this. That's a pretty good item for the Necromancer. I think it's actually necessary for one of the builds. So if you got that early, great for you, right? Not helping us out too much right now, but we'll take anything we can get. And I can go ahead and fight those guys because they do drop some pretty rare affix shards, which can be pretty useful. And the items, even if I'm not using them for this character, I can go ahead and sell them. And they sell for, I think, like 1,500 gold, 600 gold or something. So they sell for quite a lot. And that can be very useful for gambling in the beginning of the game. Okay, one thing to keep in mind here is this guy will throw a giant thing at you right there. Avoid that at all costs. That's really the only major deadly move here. Now, not to say that everything else he throws at you can't kill you, because they absolutely can. But we just want to make sure that we're staying on the edge, throwing down our decoy when we can, and using our smoke bomb to our full advantage. See if we got hit right there, that would have been it. Okay. Go through our skills while we're here, and we've got the time to Falconer. That's one thing I forgot to do again, was throw on my bird. That would have helped us out quite a bit. I almost need like an alarm or something to go off, right when I'm locked my tree, to tell me to put that bird on my bar. Would have saved us quite a bit of time. Okay. There we go. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't tested this. I'm pretty sure, though, if you come to this area and you teleport right away to a neighboring area for fast enough and then teleport back in, you should end up right here, which would save you that distance. It might save you about like 2-3 seconds or so. It depends on how fast your loading screens are. Offline, especially, I might recommend doing that. But then again, you do have your teleport ability, so it's not 100% needed. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to go ahead and go in here to my passives and see if I get something in here that's going to benefit me a lot. Like, that's pretty useful. None of these, I think, are going to be any better than what I have. I love that. Put that in there. Anything that is absolutely needed. Okay. And then I'm going to go over to my forge and I'm going to double check that I can't level up some of these. Critical. Nice. This void res I don't really need anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and roll that off. Dodge rating I'll take. I have a prefix on here. Let's throw in some dexterity and level up some of my health. Let's see. Physical resistance is the most important thing in the campaign, so I'm going to focus on that. Elemental damage. What do we have for suffixes here? So we're going to come up to a poison zone eventually, and I tend not to mess with this that much once I've already put these in. So I'd like to get some of that on here already. Okay, the game really wants us to have strength. Health shards, always important to stack health. Prefixes, nothing really important. All right, and now I'm going to move forward. So if we have time and you want to learn how to craft on your gear and what's the best thing for your gear, in general, if your gear has nothing on it, put anything on it. There's usually some use for most things. I would double check what your main multiplier is. So for example, mine is dexterity, so I tend to put dexterity on pretty much everything. That is a sentinel piece, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And we got something back here, so I'm just going to go ahead and check it out because it could be something fairly useful. That decoy is helping me group all these monsters together, making my life easier. Now, I am one of those people that I tend to go and check pretty much any unique in the game just because, uniques are exciting. Sometimes they're something useful, and at the very least, if they're decent, for leveling, then I'll put them in a leveling stash, and then anytime I level up an alt character, I can go ahead and use it. Now, in this case, I am playing a solo character found, which means that this character cannot interact with any other character that I make. So a pro tip here is if you find a unique that is not for your build and it's a solo character found character, get rid of it right away. Don't let it take up any storage in your stash or anything like that. Same thing for finding items that your character doesn't use. If you find a bunch of two-handed weapons and your character uses no two-handed weapons or none of the alternate builds use two-handed weapons, go ahead and scrap it right away. So we're going to go ahead and take a peek at what we got. Interesting. Igniting on melee hit. Flame Reeve hits. Okay. +4 to. Alright. Bleeding Heart. I don't like this because of the you are inflicted with bleed when you cast a spell. That makes me nervous, and I've almost died to it several times. So let's go ahead and put in some more skill points, if it'll let me. All right, another huge way to save time over here is to go through this upper part of the zone. We don't have to go down, and just stick towards the top, and eventually you'll get to a bridge that makes you want to go up, and just follow it up. So there's that bridge. We're going to follow it, and then there's the door. Now, this is one of my least favorite zones. I feel like if you look at the timer down there, um, the first act took 18 minutes, right? The next act took another, 18 minutes or something like that, and then it goes to like what is that, 20 minutes? I'm not sure because I'm fighting monsters, and I should have done this math ahead of time. So every single one of these has a certain time frame for, to complete them, and they all seem to be about, 20 minutes a piece. But there's so many shortcuts that in these later acts that you really have to be aware of to get that time frame. So it feels so much longer going through these because we're already taking shortcuts. The first acts are pretty straightforward, and it's just skipping some NPCs that you don't have to talk to, and talking to them doesn't save you too much time. But not going through that other area there, not going to the, I think, college thing that they have you do, that's a huge skip, and it still is almost on par with the other acts. All right, this is area level 26. So all of the monsters around us are area level 26. Don't go left, that's a trap. Now that we've unlocked that portal there, we're going to go ahead and go through the Corrupted Lake. My first time doing hardcore speedrun practices, I had a character come through here about this level, and of course it was the rogue because that's what I'm practicing. And I was feeling really confident, got to the last boss. I had a really good item to protect myself, a lot of physical resistance, and I just stood there and let the boss kill me because I didn't expect my damage over time to be so atrocious in terms of what affected me. Now that was before the season patch, so they did reduce the damage over time effects on our characters here. So maybe now it's not too bad and we don't have to worry about it as much, but just something to keep in mind. These guys can be deadly if you let them. So to make that a little bit easier on me, I go ahead and throw one of those decoys down right about there. Focus on this monster, and then focus on the others right here. Okay. And then we're going to go to our map and back to the Risen Lake. What I'm doing there, by the way, is just going up and down on the controller, because when you look at the quests and navigating up and down on the D-pad, it will move you through the various zones and timelines to the correct thing where the quest is. So it saves you a little bit of time doing that. Okay, we don't need to do that quest over there, which is one of my least favorite quests because it's a stand around and wait quest. You talk to the person over there and wait for the monsters to show up, kill the monsters, wait for more monsters to show up, kill the monsters, and I would just rather be going through the area, which I didn't know you could do until recently. So now we're just going to be moving through to the next zone. Something else to keep in mind is, despite this giant inviting door here, that's not the way you go. You go up around this corner here. Now, I've fallen for that exactly one time, and I've decided to never fall for it ever again, so I'm very particular about avoiding that one little area there. Okay, let's see if this guy's got anything good for us. He does not. He's got that same item. So notice how I didn't banish it last time? Because I didn't banish it, it keeps that item until you banish it or challenge or, empower it enough times. So this means if you're in the early game and let's say you find an end game item that won't be equipped until later on in the game, go ahead and save it. Don't interact with those those guys. And as you get to the end game, when you're ready for the item, it'll still keep it there, and you can empower it and get a higher chance of getting some rare affixes. We want that shrine. Okay, in this case, it's a experience shrine, I believe. So we might clear out a little bit more of these monsters this time through, including maybe this boss if it doesn't take too much time. Let's see. It doesn't look too bad. Just for that little bit of XP. Okay, I recognize those boots, but I don't want them. So go away. Now this just helps me get the actual legendary items that I want instead of getting stuck with the later game and having to go through some of those random shrines. Plus, sometimes you get like movement speed boots on there, which makes your run just 1,000 times faster. Or a Weaver's Will item. I've gotten some of those before. Okay, champion, we gotta be aware of him. Chaos Bolts is pretty good. Not enough to be confident taking on a champion and all of these monsters. So we're just gonna move to the end. Okay. So here we just kind of want to move down and to the left. So as long as we're moving down and to the left, we should eventually get funneled to the correct area. So you see that I kind of zigzagged through there. And again, I don't want to fight too many enemies here. Now this is a level 28 zone, which means that a Chris can drop here. So I do want to keep an eye out in case the dagger Chris drops, which is what's going to boost the damage in my build insanely. So I'm just going to keep my eyes peeled for that happening. And the mistake that I made before was not waiting until I unlocked a checkpoint here and I had to go through that zone again. Because I thought that there was a checkpoint in here and it auto-locked. So I just teleported to the end of time because I was already level 27 and I gambled for a Chris. So I am not going to make that mistake this time. See that little portal thing down there? That's what I thought I'd already claimed. Little did I know. Okay, now at this point I've got it, but since I'm not level 27, if I go to the gambler, I will not find a Chris item available for me. So I'm going to go ahead and kill a few more of these monsters. And okay, I want that for sure. Okay. So at this point, I'm actually going to go ahead and go to the end of time, even if I die here, waiting for me to go there. And I'm going to go over to this guy and search for these Chris's. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of 90% of this stuff, because I don't need it. I'll keep some of the idols. One to dive bomb I'll take. I know it's the shift thing, but I'm not going to need it in the end game. I thought I might have used it earlier, but I ended up not. And we're going to hopefully get something that's got a good roll on it. So this is 57% and 52% critical strike. What else we got? 56. Okay. What else do you got for me? 52%. Can just keep refreshing until I run out of gold if I really want to. I got pretty lucky with finding them pretty early on in this. There's another one. 45. That's not very good. It's got the chance to bleed on hit. Alright, I might try my luck with one more. 41. So that's a 57, 56. That one's good to go. If I take this one and put it in here and use one of these things on it, we get a better chance. Maybe rolling that there. Critical strike multiplier, absolutely great. Chance to shred armor, absolutely great. So that's going to be our best weapon. And then we can go ahead and put that in. Look through our skills. We've got a couple to put in here. Let's see here. There. And our passives. I cannot remember what I'm supposed to do next here. For the life of me. I know I eventually go up there, so I'm just going to do that. Okay, now back to the area we were in before. So this is a little bit of backtracking, but not nearly as bad. You can see that I'm doing a lot more damage now. We got a loot lizard. So anytime I critically strike, it's just going to be a huge chunk of the enemy's health gone. So when that hits, it's really satisfying, which is why we were stacking all of that critical strike. I'm curious, what did we get for body armor? Interesting. I think I had a video on this actually. One of the nemesises carried it. I've never actually found it in the wild. Okay. So there's a nemesis down there, but we'd have to go really far out of our way to go see him. So we're going to ignore that entirely. Make sure we're using our decoys and our smoke bomb, because our smoke bomb gives us increased damage. You can see that Barton, I almost want to call him Horton, is a little bit of a chump compared to us at this point. Anything good there? Nothing. Now we get into the danger zone. Archer reference for anybody who's familiar. All right. And poison's going to be huge here. So, do we have any poison? We do not. I think we might have scrapped one of those. So we're going to double check if there's any items that have a poison for us. Poison resistance. Now, I'm actually going to use a rune of removal to guarantee that we got it, which we did. And then put that on. We can at least add our poison resistance shard on there. It's not going to be much. Let's take a look at our character. We're at 27%, but we have 64% physical. So we're just going to make sure that we're killing everything around us. Those little snake dudes are what's going to kill us if we stay in here for half a second. They give you a ailment, which is just absolutely deadly. So any things on here that help. Wow, okay, that's great actually. That shrine gave us Shadow Cascade, and Shadow Cascade is actually one of our main damaging abilities. So it's going to kill everything. It sucks we didn't get it in the next zone, but if you get Shadow Cascade, just run forward. It will kill everything around you. Now, if we were offline, that would have carried through the next zone, which would have been great for this zone. Here, I just kind of snake my way through the middle and then go up and then back to the right. Now, we see that we have that debuff on us, so it's going to be taking out our character if we stop for half a second. So just keep moving forward, throwing a couple of these things around as you move forward. Don't have to talk to that guy, so ignore him. Forgot to advance my timer, by the way. And then we're just going to move up again. Now, here, I probably won't even stop to look at this guy. I might just tap it once, just in case there's something that's godly that I recognize in a glance, but I do not want to get caught here. Occasionally, if I get a really big group behind me and I want to take them all out, I'll throw down a decoy and turn around and fire everything out. But I only do that after I'm confident that I've got the time and energy to kill them. We can see that shadow dagger going on them, by the way, which is just satisfying. Okay. So like here, for example, I'm going to throw down a decoy, stop for a second, turn around, and then just take all of those guys out. Okay, we're going to do that again. Throw down a decoy, put down one of these things, stop for a second, take everything out. While we have the time, we're going to stop here to do some of our skills. Now, you don't have to talk to this guy. I do, just because I've got a habit of misremembering where to go here. So this just helps guide me in the right direction. Even though it's fairly simple, just go to the right. Okay, we're approaching the poison boss. Decoys are going to be your best friend here. So come in, throw a decoy down, throw your smoke bomb, stand still, and spam your skill at him. Easy as that. It honestly trivializes him. Now we're going to move to the right here because there's I think a passive or maybe an idol that we can get. Our decoy should replenish. So as we come in here, throw down a decoy, throw down a smoke bomb. Enemies all gather around there. Get that. It was a passive, and then move our way up. So that could be basically our strategy for almost every single boss in the game. We want to make sure that we're not standing in the strike zone of these guys too. So like this guy is a melee boss, which means if we get too close to him, he can just stomp us out. So we're going to be mindful of that. Okay. We're pretty good on our leveling here. That was lucky. So that's another two-handed weapon, and I know I don't use any two-handed weapons. So on this solo character found, I would just scrap that right away and sell it for some gold, which can be used to buy some runes of shattering to get more shards that I actually need. Okay, this guy's inner zone, and I know it's the same thing that we looked at last time, so I'm going to actually take the time to banish it this time. And I'm going to put that there. I think I did one too many. I'm supposed to do 5. Not a big deal, though. These guys are pretty dangerous. I don't think I've ever... Well, I might have lost one character to them just because I didn't realize how dangerous they were. And so now I try to at least fire some skills at them and make sure that they don't ruin my character experience, because these guys die very fast but also deal a lot of damage. Okay, I'm just going to be a little bit cautious with that guy, because I know I'm coming up to this fight and I don't want to accidentally die by grouping way too many monsters that I'm unprepared for. Okay, there's a shrine over here. Even though it's near that guy, I want it. I don't mind him chasing me a little bit because I tend to outrun most of these champions anyway. So many times coming here when I was first playing, I would go up the middle because it seems like that's the correct way to go, although it is not. Another shrine here. Let's see if it's anything useful. One of my favorite shrines in the game. Awesome. There's another one over there. I don't want to bother going to it because I've got something that's going to help me out with this boss fight here, so might as well take as much advantage of it as I can. All right. That guy's killed me before too, and we just made that look easy. Okay, so we're going to be approaching the next town here in the end of this act. Now, something to keep in mind here is that the talking to this girl gives you a passive point. So if you're doing the Act 5 method and stopping and going to monoliths, you really want to make sure that you talk to this chick who gives you the quest to go to the Temporal Sanctum area, because you get some, I think also maybe an idol from her too, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something that's going to help us. And then this one up here, talking to her will help you get an extra passive point. So let's see. There's that passive point. At this point, we're going to go back and we're going to get ready to unlock the Temporal Sanctum dungeon. And the reason that we do this for both versions of leveling, you can do the Act 5 method, and the Act 5 method gets you into monoliths the fastest. We're at an hour and a half, so an hour and a half to be playing the game and into the end game system is pretty good. If we are playing a hardcore character, we want to make sure we're getting all of the idols and passives available to us, so we would be continuing on until we reach Act 7. Now, even though we don't have all of the idols and passives done, coming to this area and getting this dungeon right here is going to allow us to skip to chapter 9. This is really dangerous. Skip to chapter 9, and in chapter 9 there's plenty of quests that will let us finish off all of the idols and passives we need for our character. So the Act 5 method, go to Act 5, jump into monoliths, keep doing monoliths until a Temporal Sanctum key drops. Then you jump into the Temporal Sanctum dungeon. As long as you beat it, at the end there, where you go to slam your items, you can exit out the other side, throws you into Chapter 9. You make your way to the starting town in Chapter 9, and then complete the quests along the way there for the rest of your idols and passives. For the Chapter 7 method that we're doing, we still want to come over here and unlock this Temporal Sanctum dungeon, because the only way to access the endgame factions is through Chapter 9. So if you want to do any of the endgame factions like the Circle of Fortune or the Merchant's Guild, well, then you're going to have to go through the dungeon anyway. Now, that might be changed in the future. It would be really nice if we could see an option for, you know, those of us who do the early monolith system. You know, can you let us, after completing, let's say, the first monolith zone, let us go and do the Circle of Fortune and stuff. But who knows if the game company is actually open to that option. Okay, now we're into another incredibly dangerous zone. Notice how most of the zones in this game are incredibly dangerous? Well, the reason for that is because we're the rogue. If we own a rogue and we have good resistances built up, there's only a few areas that are dangerous for all characters. You can get a poison buff or debuff on you right here, and it just wipes out your character. So we're just going to always be moving, and we're going to focus on doing as much damage as we can to these monsters while getting through the zone. Safest thing to do is to clear out the monsters. Don't let any of them get behind you. Don't let those snake dudes attack you. Get ready to throw down a decoy, and you should be all right in this zone. But again, it's one of the longest zones in the game, and it really sucks to be almost to the end and then die. So I don't know if we're supposed to go. Yeah, we're supposed to go down. I always get confused here. That is the one thing that I keep running into over and over again, is that one room right there. And again, because we can't really stop, we're not going to bother taking our time to look at these. We're just going to tap it real quick, see if there's anything good. I think that's the same thing I got before, and move on to the next area. Getting a little dangerous. I'm going to throw in a decoy because I was at half health, and move forward. Okay, we're almost on the home stretch, which is when it gets the most dangerous. Throw down another decoy. Make our way to the end here. And we're safe. Sometimes at the top of the area there's a shrine, and at the bottom there's a chest that you can go to. You can see it on the screen there, but it's not really worth it, so I just skip it because you have to zigzag down the stairs, which is just annoying. Okay. So I would love to see some improvements, by the way, in this zone in particular, just because it feels like the monster density is just not there. You don't really want to, spend too much time here. So you're just holding down whatever movement skill you have and trying to get to the next zone as fast as possible. There could be something that we could add here just to make it a little bit more exciting, whether it's, rare monster types or um, maybe some guaranteed loot to make you want to come here. This guy always takes forever for me to kill. I absolutely cannot stand him. And he throws down a lot of poison, which is really scary. So I'm ready with my decoy at all times to gather up all the monsters. And I'm going to use my smoke bomb. Now, we actually don't need to go through that door there. We can just go over to that little zone on the right. And it saves us a good chunk of time. I hope that makes us friends. Okay. So we're in Act 6. We're in the home stretch. At this point, we want to kind of make sure we can get some cold resistance on items. So if you find anything that's got cold resistance, go ahead and save it. It'll prove useful when we get to Act 7, our final zone that we have to go through. And I believe you don't have to complete the whole zone. We just have to do until the tree boss. Now, I've never really gone after that except for once, so maybe that is the final zone, but... And we obviously want to complete some of those side quests there as well. Okay. Anything good here? Is it the same thing? It is. Got time to banish it. Hmm. This guy owes us everything. Yet he hasn't given us any unique items or legendary loot, which is rather rude when you think about it. He's got to help us out more. Although I think he does, I'm not sure if it's this guy, join us in the Weaver tree to give us more gold maybe, but that's an endgame thing, which we don't care about now. This is another one of these things that I mean, like where you get to this point and the monster density is just so scarce and these zones are so long and winding that it makes me, it feels kind of sleepy almost. I'm a little tired. Luckily, there's a lot of these shrines throughout here normally. I think I encounter on average at least two or three. There's a couple more that I don't have time to go to. Loot lizard, you're in the way I need to go, so I'm going to get you. Something to keep in mind too is with those nemesises, when they were first introduced, they were very exciting and fun and great to have. Maybe instead of giving more items, you could have some runes or glyphs that could drop from those. And that would absolutely make me engage in most of these nemesises, especially in the campaign, because those runes and glyphs are great. And if you have a chance for them to drop a rune of ascendance or a rare rune as well, maybe by upgrading it or empowering it, um, I think that's probably the best thing that you could do for those nemesises going forward, since they are permanently in the game. Just a suggestion. If you agree with me, let me know if you think they're perfect where they're at. Go ahead and let the EHG devs know that as well. So we're gonna go ahead and go out of our way a little bit to get that shrine. Acid Flask is a pretty good one. Up here, there's a quest to kill some monsters and help save this dude. You don't have to do that. Go ahead and run by it. Sayonara. I love the sound those things make, by the way. They've really kind of got some good finishing touches on those. All right, we've unlocked our third skill, I think. Fourth skill, which I think is the Falcon. So previously I switched these two around and I was running the Falcon before as my primary or my third skill. And I surprisingly did pretty good with the Falcon instead of the Smoke Bomb. It definitely made these boss fights feel a little slower. So I'm going to take some time after getting to a safe area to put in that skill. All right, where you at, Falcon? There you are. Can't remember if I'm supposed to go there or not. Probably was. Okay, and again, I'm not sure if we unlock that or not. If we do unlock that portal thing, which I guess I could check. Yeah, we do. It might be faster to leave, come back, and teleport through here to reach that center zone. That guy's got some drip. So this zone typically doesn't take me too much time. We get to skip a large majority of it, and it's all about making it to this boss fight, and then we're in our final act. These zones tend to have a lot of monster density, so feel free to clear out a couple of these guys to get some extra levels if you need it. I just tend to run through it. Now we want to go left here. Oof. Let's go ahead and kill this guy. I don't want him following me the whole time. Look at that. We want to go left here because these monsters that we're supposed to kill here move in a circular motion going counterclockwise. So if we follow them in a clockwise way, they'll just run into us, which makes finding our way through here much easier as well. And this was something that I noticed almost immediately when going through this zone. I went right at first and I was like, hey, these guys are running away from me. Next time I'll go left. So I'm sure most of you have already kind of figured that out. But for those who don't, it just helps save you a little bit more time. That guy's going to come down to us. And then we should run into this guy right before the exit. Interesting. That's a Chris. You can see that it's a different color. That's because I changed my loot filter according to the loot filter suggestions. Immediately noticed that right away. So now I'll check and see if it's a good one. Real quick. Let's see. Was it this one? Yep. All right, now why did this get put on here? 65% critical strike chance and the critical strike multiplier. That's amazing. I'm going to put on a Rune of Discovery and let's see, what's my weakest one? Probably this one. Put that in. I've got some spots for these idols, so I'm going to go ahead and throw them in. That necrotic resistance there. And let's go ahead and spend some more points. So, I mentioned this in a loot filter suggestion guide that I made and uploaded, I think, before this video. But the loot filters that you get in the game are all incredibly good, but it makes sense to go in there and tweak the color of the really rare items to be something that you know is good rather than what the person who created the loot filter is good. Now, if you're the one who created the loot filter, absolutely great. But if not, I tweaked that to green. I know that set items are the only other thing that's green in the game, and they very rarely drop, so it draws my eyes to them pretty easily. So that's how I was able to tell in a glance that that was something that I really needed, which is great because it's right before another major boss fight. A couple bosses actually. All right, there's a lot of enemies here, so I'm going to grab this just in case. Throw down one of these decoys to gather up some of these enemies. Save your life. Okay, we got some of our levels. Before going through there, make sure that you go in here and put whatever you need. I'm 90% sure I do need that. I can't remember if I need one or two though, so whatever. Let's see. Okay, so she's really easy to kill, so don't bother wasting any decoys or anything on her. Just throw down those, because these other guys take a while to spawn in anyway. Now we're going to go ahead and use one of these. We don't need to use our decoy. We're going to save that just in case this other guy shows up a little bit early. Now we're throwing down our decoy. He goes that way. We go over here. Just distract him for a little bit. It always takes way longer. And you're gone. Okay. Now, this zone is incredibly dangerous, and I don't like incredibly dangerous things, so I teleport out of there, and then I'll teleport back in just to move me a little bit closer to the waypoint and save me a little bit of distance from fighting all of these dangerous guys. When you do that, the guys that normally spawn around here disappear, so that's going to help you stay alive just for that few seconds you need to adjust to this zone. And if I'm not mistaken, it might even save you time. That was relatively fast there, if I'm not mistaken. Jade Ring of Life. I know that's good because I've changed the loot filter color for it. So our goal right here is just to safely make our way to the next zone. Once we do so, we should be roughly safe. If we found any cold resistance items and stuff after we get through this zone, we want to start putting those on as well. Let's see, this is Act 7, so I gotta switch the timer on there. So we're likely going to be a little bit slower than our fastest time, but that's pretty good for describing what we're actually doing, not focusing 100% on things, and probably getting a little bit different luck in terms of the items and the shrines. There we go. That's the word that we're finding. I am not familiar with what this does. Looks cool though. There is a rainbow shrine that you can get, by the way, that boosts pretty much every thing about you. I think it makes you like attack faster, run faster, deal more damage, and all that stuff. I've gotten it rarely. Every single time I get it, it tends to be in one of the shortest zones or the most safe zones. So. Okay, this guy will do most of the work for us, so we don't got to worry about it. I just like to go through here and start scrapping some of these important items. Anything good? All right, that might be better to wear actually at this point. Movement speed, that's useful. I could get rid of 90% of these. Versus what just happened. Making sure I got my good ones on still. Okay, that's apparently a good one. We'll keep that. Okay, so something important to keep in mind here is that, let's see, where am I at? Oops, one more passive point to put in there. We need to talk to her. We need to talk to this guy. And then we need to make sure that we get a waypoint over here. Now, there is 2 bosses coming up, actually 3 bosses that are incredibly difficult and likely to kill us. So we want to be a little cautious here. This is the waypoint that we need to get to. Once we've got it, we're going to go to the next zone. We're going to teleport back to that waypoint to save us a little bit of time later. We want to make sure we don't stay in an area for too long. These ice guys will freeze us, and once they freeze us, the cold damage just gets stacked up on us like crazy. If you're curious, by the way, my cold damage is currently at 13%, but I do have 73% physical resistance. Throw down a decoy there for that guy to target. He hits pretty hard. And that lets us go through, talk to this guy. And then we need to make sure we're making our way to the next zone. And then we're just going to talk to this guy. And continue our way up. Now these Wingari guys are incredibly dangerous. They'll probably end most people's runs unless you're a sentinel. Just keep in mind that if you give them the chance to group up on you, it's going to be game over. In this case, if we're in softcore, it's not too big of a deal. Now, I normally go up instead of going over there, but because of that shrine, I decided to go down this way this time. Okay, that's nice. Because there's a guy up there that I like to go to. So, man, this is a tough decision. If I can keep these shrines until the Wingardi boss is up there, I would love that. So I'm going to try my best to kill everybody as fast as I possibly can. And it's a Chris. I'm going to have to take that. And try and see if I can bring these shrines into that final boss. Because these guys up here are going to be the most deadly. We want to use our decoys. We want to make sure we're still dodging things, and we're going to be using our smoke bombs. So decoy, smoke bombs, still dodging mechanics. Like that, spamming our attacks. Get out of there. Back here. Okay. And we made it. And now we're going to go back to this teleportation point. Okay, so we're almost done here. At this point, we just need to collect 2 more things for one of these idols and passives points. And then we got to fight our tree boss. So that stun was, you could see, a huge hit. And it took out a lot of her health there. So whenever that happens, I chuck down a decoy right away. Now, of course, it's always when we would get to the end of a zone that we're likely to die. So if I end up dying right about now, just let you know I called it. I can't remember which way to go here. Okay, officially a little bit past our fastest time ever. Now, something to keep in mind is before you could go up to this bridge over here, activate it, and run on the invisible air and just make your way across it. They've fixed that. So if you go over here and you activate this and you try and teleport out there, your character will freeze and get stuck in place. So just wait a second until this bridge actually goes, and then you won't accidentally die there because you weren't aware of that change. Throw a couple more of those in. We're going to check if there's anything that's really beneficial to us. I think I'm supposed to go this way and then this way maybe. Okay. So we're going to stick to the right here and then go up. And as soon as we can go left, we go left. There's another way you can go through here by going up a little bit further before going left. I don't think it really matters that much or saves you more time. I'm sure there's a reason some other people go up. Maybe there's a chance for a shrine going there, but I like my way. So now I go left. Always want to make sure we have at least a couple potions on us. If I ever only have 1 potion, then that means I'm likely going to die. Because if I use 1 and then end up with 0, I'm screwed. We don't like that boss. All right, this is a pretty big area. Again, I stick to the right until the game kind of naturally wants me to go up. And that seems to work for me. Now, something to keep in mind is try and save and evade here in case you end up running into an icicle wall. Then you can teleport through that icicle wall like there with the evade. There's another icicle wall. We're going to invade it through it. Hopefully this gives us something good. Anytime there's a champion monster, I throw down a decoy near it. This guy takes forever with his huge conversation. Hopefully this is good. I am not sure what that is, but I hope it's good. Okay, again, we want to save some of our evades for when these icicle dudes stun us or put up a wall in front of us. In fact, more than likely, those guys are going to kill us, if anything. We're kind of in a situation where both of us can take each other out. I kill them in 2 seconds, they kill me in 5 seconds, so oop, almost dead there. Okay. Now we're trying to go through the middle. We're almost to the end. Please let us make it through. I'm going to do something stupid and go back for that for absolutely no reason. Okay. Tree boss. Same exact strategy as any boss in the game. Throw a decoy down, get our, smoke bomb going, back up a little bit when he does one of those attacks. All right, he's done. Got this. Talk to you. A weird little glitchy thing happens there. And then now we need to talk to our 3 guys and we'll be done. Thank you. Thank you. And you're welcome. All right, let's check our map. We see a 15 out of 15 and 8 out of 8. And that's it. We finished in 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 8 seconds. I think I'd added a penalty of 30 seconds or so at the beginning of the game, or a minute. So we'll call it 2 hours and 6 minutes. So that was leveling up with some tips and tricks in the new season, dealing with the champion monsters. This changes a little bit based on your class, but every single class will have certain items in the game that are going to be beneficial to you. Go through your loot filter and identify what the loot filter says is the most important items. Change the color to be something that really stands out for you. And then as you go through the game, once those items drop, hey, I got to equip those right away. Add some runes of implicits, I think is what they're called. Let me just double check that if I have any. Rune of Discovery. Add some of those onto your gear and it will help give you some rare affixes. Craft up physical resistance. We didn't die 1 time on this character. Now, despite the fact that we didn't have the threat of death, I feel like that was a pretty good run. So that's just some basic advice. Later on, I'll make a video on going through the monoliths and some tips and techniques for getting through monoliths in the most efficient way possible, because ARPGs are all about efficiency, and once you learn how to really utilize your time, it just gets faster and faster. So I'll see you guys next time.